Hello everyone and welcome to Conway's Corner. Today we are going to be doing a beginner's guide to Last Epoch. Now I have been playing this game on and off since 2019. I have about 600 hours in the game, and as of patch 0.92 I did a full account wipe and started from scratch. I want to start this off by going over each of the classes and their specializations. We will start with the Sentinel. The Sentinel is shown with a sword and shield, although it does not have to be using a sword and shield. In fact, most builds will prefer to either use a two-handed sword or be dual wielding. The reason for that is that the shield is not going to give you enough to make it worth using over the better affixes on a two-handed weapon, or having twice the amount of offensive affixes that you get while dual wielding. Its three masteries are going to be Void Knight, Forge Guard, and Paladin. Void Knight here is the only class in the game that has native access to void damage. Certain other classes and specs will have certain skills that can be changed into void damage either through their skill tree or through using specific uniques. Void Knight nowadays is mostly just an erasing strike build. It is a big slam that deletes most things on the screen. It has been nerfed, however, so it's not really as strong as it used to be, although it is still a lot of fun and it's still solid. Next up is Forge Guard. Forge Guard is okay. It's not the best, it's not the worst. Everything that it does, however, is done better by Void Knight or Paladin, or is just not worth doing. The main gimmick is being able to summon forged weapons, and through the skill Manifest Armor, you can summon copies of your weapons and armor respectively. You can still get forged weapons from Warpath through a node in its skill tree, although it is not great. It's not bad, but it's not a massive game changer. As of right now, I would honestly say Forge Guard you can kind of skip unless you really like the idea of Manifest Armor and having a bunch of forged weapons and Smelter's Wrath. Last up is Paladin. So Paladin is similar to Paladins in other ARPGs. However, the big difference here is that Paladin is DPS focused through skills like Smite, like Judgment is a big one. It is a great candidate for Bleed and Ignite builds in general, as Warpath and Holy Aura will give you access to increased fire damage, fire penetration, Ignite, and that's just one build. Warpath is a solid build. However, you also have Judgment, you've got Hammered In, you've got Javelin, you've got Smite. Paladin is incredibly flexible and all of its builds are good. Up next is the Rogue. If you've played a Rogue in an ARPG, you have played this Rogue. It doesn't really bring much new to the table. In fact, the Marksman is kind of a letdown. There's nothing special or unique about Marksman as a spec in this game compared to other ARPGs. However, Blade Dancer does have some really interesting things in that it creates shadow clones that will copy certain attacks you do, or can be used to have them combine on a single enemy and do a bunch of damage. It is a class, and both specs as a whole require a lot more player investment and player skill than really any other class in the game. So if you are someone who likes playing a class that is very skill expressive, honestly, Rogue is probably your best bet. Mage, it's a mage. You're going to cast big spells. You're going to do really flashy effects. It's going to be real pretty. Its 3 masteries being Sorcerer. Sorcerer, you mostly play if you want to cast Meteor or Black Hole. Otherwise, you're playing Rune Master at this point. Let's just go to Rune Master next. Rune Master is the newest spec in the game. It is also the most complicated on paper. A lot of people's eyes got really wide when we saw that Runic Invocation had 40 different spells attached to it. However, there aren't many Rune Master builds out there that are actually taking advantage of all 40. Generally, you're picking anywhere from 1 to 4 that you are focusing on, and those are going to be the ones that you are constantly spamming. The big ones being spells like Plasma Orb, Hydrahedron, Ball Lightning, Greater Fireball, and Stormlance. However, there are also several defensive spells in there. There are spells that are great for single target, spells that are great for doing AoE, dealing with large amounts of monsters. It is very flexible and it is very strong between Runic Invocation, Frost Wall, which is now seeing play on Sorcerer builds and even some Spellblade builds due to the fact that you can use it to cast Flame Ward on yourself without putting Flame Ward on cooldown. Rune Bolt is honestly kind of a letdown, and Glyph of Dominion is really cool, does a lot of damage, enables a lot of damage from other spells. If you want to cast a lot of spells, you want to look very flashy, this is the spec for you. Last but not least for the mage is Spellblade. Spellblade is a melee class in mage. It uses elemental attacks like Shatter Strike and Flame Reave. You generally are going to pick one of the two, and that is going to be the skill that you use to do a bunch of damage with. Shatter Strike, although being better, Flame Reave looks cooler, and a lot of people gravitate towards it, myself included, just because it's cool. If you want to play a melee style caster, I would definitely look at Spellblade. It is one of the best specializations in this game. Definitely like top 3. Up next is the Primalist. This is our Druid. In fact, one of the masteries is called Druid. If you played Diablo 2 Druid, all 3 of its skill trees are represented in the 3 masteries. Up first is the Beastmaster. As the name implies, this is a pet job. You have access to, I believe, 6 different pets, 4 from Beastmaster, and the Raptor, the Bear, the Sabertooth, and the Scorpion, alongside the Wolf and the Stormcrow from the base Primalist skills. You can play with a number of different animals, or you can play and just focus on one animal. You can have many pet companions, you can have one. There are builds for all of them. The 2 big notable builds in here are going to be the Poison Nova Scorpion and the Squirrel build, which comes off of the Summon Wolf, and it requires a high level unique that has a rare chance to drop. It is a good spec. It is very strong. However, the fact that like the 2 best builds in them are Poison Nova, which I do not find the gameplay of very fun, and Squirrels, which requires a level 75 unique, means that you have to play something else until you A, have the unique, and B, are at the required level to go into Squirrels. Up next is Shaman. Don't play Shaman. Shaman is getting a full rework come 1.0 in little over a month now, a month and 5 days as of recording. It's in a very awkward spot. It's pretty clunky right now. You want to go into Shaman if you really like playing totems or you really like Earthquake. Other than that, there's no real reason to choose Shaman over Beastmaster or Druid, or just a different spec in general. Last but not least for the Primalist is going to be the Druid. The Druid is our shapeshifter. You have 3 different forms to choose from, those being the Spriggan, which is a more support-based form, although Shaman can get use out of it if you are playing totems. The Swarmblade, which is an insectoid Swarmblade, as it is called, that is focused around dealing a lot of damage through the use of bleed and poison dots. It is the more glass cannon of the 2 DPS focused forms. And the final one, of course, would be the Werebear. Werebear is incredibly tanky, does a lot of damage, and is a very safe build to play. Last but not least, we have got the 2 Acolyte Masteries in Necromancer and Lich. Necromancer is Necromancer. You've played a Necro. If you've played an ARPG and played a Necromancer, you have played Necromancer and Last Epoch. It doesn't bring anything really new or innovative to the table, and that is okay. It's fun. If you like having a bunch of skeletons and golems, this is the class for you. Last but not least is the Lich. Lich is very interesting. I am not really a Lich player. There's some really interesting interactions with like Death Seal and Aura of Decay. It used to have a incredibly strong build with zombies and wandering souls. There was a lot of shenanigans that you could pull off. However, a lot of it has been patched out of the game as they were bugs and exploits. They are getting rid of those. So Lich has kind of taken a little bit of a hit. If you like the idea of playing as a Grim Reaper and you don't mind the fact that you need split scaling, then this is the spec for you. All right, so once you have picked your character, let's go over the things that you are going to be doing to make your character. We'll start with the inventory here. Now, as always, we are going to have our gear slots. Nothing new here. 2 rings, 1 amulet, main hand and offhand that you can either dual wield with if you are in a class that can dual wield and you have put the passive point in the skill tree. Otherwise, you can use shields or catalysts, a belt, gloves, boots, helmet, armor, and the last thing is going to be your relic. There are class-specific relics, such as this one, and there are general relics that can be used by any class. These will drop fairly frequently. Just find one you like as you're going through the leveling process, and you can worry about getting the perfect rolls until you are much, much later in the game. Up next is going to be the idols system. This is the bane of my farming existence. Farming the perfect idols is incredibly difficult as you are at the mercy of RNG. You cannot craft relics, you cannot adjust or re-roll the stats on relics. What drops is what you get. There are a bunch of different shapes. You have 1x1s, 1x2, 2x1, 1x3, 1x4, 4x1, 4x1, 3x1, and 2x2. The 1x1s, 1x2s, and 2x1s are all class agnostic. However, any of the 4x1s to the 1x4s, all of these are going to be class specific. Now, these will drop fairly frequently. You will unlock idol slots as you progress through the campaign and complete side quests. So just be on the lookout, try and find idols that mesh well with your build, and keep it moving. Once you get to endgame, this is generally the thing that people will farm out last, just because it can be an absolute nightmare to do. Crafting materials, as they drop, will be put in your inventory. You can press transfer crafting items at any time to move them into their own separate inventory. Crafting items are shared across your account, so you don't have to worry about having to re-farm crafting mats on every single character. You can always click view materials to see all of the shards for the various affixes you have. You can search for specific affixes, or you can filter them out by just prefixes or just suffixes. It should be noted, there's a lot of affixes in this game. There is a lot. In fact, you'll see down here at the very bottom, the plus levels of these are very rare. They will be a different color on the floor when they drop, so just keep an eye out for those. The other things that you will have are going to be support glyphs. These are going to be consumed while you are doing the craft itself. That will help, or I was going to say hinder, but not really hinder a craft, but these will help out in your craft, whereas your modifier runes are going to let you destroy items and get shards, increase an item to a unique rarity of the same type, reroll affixes, reroll implicits, add affixes, remove affixes, duplicate an item, or seal an affix to the piece of gear to free up an affix slot. Every piece of gear can have up to 4 affixes natively, although if you seal an affix, of course you're going to free up that slot so you can put a 5th affix on it. One nice thing is that when you look at a piece of gear, say for example this helmet, we can see here we have all of our affixes listed. One of them is in purple. That means that it is an exalted piece of gear, which means that it is either a tier 6 or a tier 7 affix, which can only be dropped. You cannot upgrade an affix past tier 5. If you are curious about what levels your affixes are, when hovering over a piece of gear, you can hold down Alt, and this will show you the range of both the implicits and the affixes, so you can see how good the piece of gear is and if it is worth re-rolling the modifiers. So next up, let's take a look at the passive tree. Now, the passive tree, when we look at it, you'll see we actually have 4 different passive trees. We are going to have our base class, which requires 20 points in it in order to start putting points in the masteries. It also requires you to have selected a mastery. So while looking at it, so this is on a paladin, you can see we have access to the full paladin tree, whereas on a Void Knight, for example, we have this chain down here. This means we cannot put any points in this back half of the tree. That means that, for example, we cannot get Anomaly. Same thing on Forge Guard, we can't get Ring of Shields or Smelter's Wrath. However, if we put enough points in it, we could get Shield Throw or Manifest Armor. Another thing to note is the passive bonuses and the mastery skill are for that mastery only. So for example, we cannot get Forge Strike, we cannot get the bonus physical and fire resistance, and the 3% armor for each hit you have taken in the last 10 seconds. However, on Paladin, of course, we do get the passive bonuses and we do get the mastery skill of Holy Aura. It is generally a good rule of thumb to try and get 20 points into your base tree and then don't put anything else in it. Of course, for Sentinel, we have to do 21 so that we can get the dual wielding if we are playing a dual wielding build. You can see as we put points in, we will unlock new skills. Same thing here. Don't be afraid to play around with your passive tree, as you can always come down here and look for this icon. There's one in each of the acts, and you can go ahead and respecialize your mastery points, and we can just pay a little bit of gold to respec points. The cost of the gold goes up based on of the amount of ranks in the skill, so it'll get cheaper. As you can see, we're at 3,080 and now it's 2,800. And now we can go ahead, and if we wanted to put those points, say in here, we could. We'll just go ahead and put those back. The next thing, this is the system that everybody loves about Last Epoch, myself included. Every single skill in the game has its own skill tree. As you level up, you will unlock 5 specialization slots. You can choose any skill that you have access to, put it in the specialization slot, and start earning experience to level up the skill tree. Now, you're going to have natively 20 points. However, if you have pieces of gear that give you plus X ranks in a skill, of course, you are going to have more than 20. It is a good rule of thumb to prioritize the main skill you are going to be using in your build. If that means, like, say, for example, we were playing a judgment build, right? And I just had other random shit. I only had 3 of my slots unlocked. I had 3 skills that I was specialized in. Judgment came out. It would be better for me to despecialize a skill and specialize judgment than to wait. However, most of the time, just pick what you are going to play and build for it. You don't need a build guide. This is a game where you cannot brick your character, thankfully, as you can go in here and we can despecialize the skill at any time for free. We can also remove a single point or as many points as we want for free at any time. But say we wanted to despecialize Warpath and we wanted to instead specialize Smite. We would just go over here, despecialize, it would free up the slot, we'd go specialize Smite, and then we could just go and start building it. Now, thing to note is that you won't go back up to like the level that the skills are currently at. They'll go to your minimum specialized level. In this case, on this character, that is 9. And then I have to earn XP to re-level the skill. It's a little bit of a time investment, but not that much. It's easy enough to do. Don't be afraid to play around with your skills, test various things, see what you like, what you don't like, and change things. It's very easy to do that. In fact, this was a bleed paladin up until about 2 hours ago. I decided, hey, actually, I want to play Ignite. And so rather than sit here and remove points one by one, I despecialized Warpath and despecialized Holy Aura to rebuild them. And with about 45 minutes to an hour of playing, I'm back up to 19 on both. So don't be afraid to mess around. It's a little bit of a time investment, especially earlier on in the story, but once you get to monoliths and stuff, it does not take long to change up your skill points. Next up, let's really quick talk about the stash. The stash is wonderful. It is completely free. You don't have to pay money to get stash tabs, nor are you limited in the amount of stash tabs you have to 4, because unlike certain other games, when you are in town with other players there, you are not also loading all of their stash tabs and everything in their inventory. If you ever want to buy a stash tab, you just press the plus button and just buy a new stash tab. It's that simple. The price will go up 10,000 every time you buy a stash tab. So do keep that in mind, but this is one of the 2 main gold sinks in the game. The other one is Gamba at the end of one of the dungeons. 2 more things I want to talk about in this video, and those being, number 1, the game guide. If you press G, it'll pull up your game guide, and you can go ahead and find most things in here about the game. Say, for example, I see people in global chat talking about legendary potential and making legendaries. Well, I can go in here and I can go to legendary item, and here is a description of what legendary items are, how to make them, how the system works. Say I got hit with an ailment that I have no idea what it is. I have never seen it before. Say I got hit with damned, right? And I go, what does damned do? Well, I can go in here and I can click on damned and see that it's a necrotic damage over time that also reduces health regen. It's that simple. There's some stuff that is not in the guide yet, but it is there. try and use it if you're unsure about something before going into global chat, as a lot of people in global chat are boomers and will just yell at you and call you dumb. Another thing to note is if you press Shift F, that brings up your loot filter. As you can see, this is just a base loot filter here that I made. It is very easy to add a rule. You can add your conditions, so like class requirement, primalist. This is a show all, so we can say hide all primalist specific items, update, and it's that easy. This is a base level loot filter, although we can go in here and we can see what, like, you know, a more complex loot filter will look like. And for a more comprehensive loot filter, I would say go ahead and check out lastepochtools.com. Lastepochtools.com is going to have just about everything you could need for this game. I personally do not recommend max roll, as a lot of the build guides in there are kind of sus. I play a lot of the builds that, you know, they have build guides for, and noticed glaring issues with the build guides. Instead of max roll going and getting the people who have been writing build guides for Last Epoch for a very long time, several of the build guide writers seem to be like Poe build guide writers that have been moved over, who have played Last Epoch. I'm not saying they haven't played the game. I'm more so saying that they don't have as much time in the game and really know how builds truly work. I think the hallmark is seeing a lot of builds that are not crit stacking builds being made into crit stacking builds on max roll. I find that very interesting and very, you know, like Diablo and Poe-esque. And Last Epoch has tried to carve out its own niche. In fact, a lot of the top performing builds in this game are actually status effect builds. But we can go in here and we can go over to build guides, and we can see build guides. We can see who wrote them. And in fact, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs to build guide writers here. There's two very specific build guide writers I really, really want to shout out. They make incredible builds. I have played a lot of their builds. I've tested a lot of the builds on this site because I get bored. I make a new character. I test a build. The big one for me is going to be EMP1241. This guy right here. I have not been let down by a single one of his builds. Generally, I play the build for a little bit and then I go, oh, okay, I'm going to try something else now, right? One of his builds for Rune Master, actually, that I play, I fell in love with, and I can't put it down. Of course, clicking on a build guide here, you know, we can see the pros and cons, everything needed. In fact, this build requires no uniques, which is nice. The stat tree allotment here, I really enjoy the fact that not only does it show me what affixes I want on a piece of gear, but what specific armor I want it on. Our idol choices, our blessing choices, the big thing here, right, is the loot filter. So say I want to play this, I can go over to build planner here. This pulls up the build in the build planner. We can go ahead and look at our stats for the build here, but we can go to loot filter. So what we can do now is go copy to clipboard, go back into game. Let's do this, and we will go paste clipboard contents, and we will call this antipode. Confirm. And there it is. Just like that, we now have a loot filter for that build. One other big thing is going to be, we can also just go to builds in general. We can filter by class, we can filter by the skill that is used, and we can filter by unique and set items. So if we found a really cool unique that looks really cool, we want to play a build with it, like say these claws, we can click on it and we can see every build that has been uploaded and what they are using. You'll see some of them have YouTube links. This will go to that person's YouTube channel where they are showing the build and explaining how it works. I highly recommend using this. Another thing that is good to know is we can go like this. This sounds fun. So we go over here and you can see we've got a lot of uniques that are also, you know, legendaries. So what we can do is we can hover over one. That's not a good one because it's got way too many lines on its modifiers. But we can see here everything the unique does, but we can also see the legendary potential and how easy or difficult getting LP 1, 2, 3, or 4 is. We can also see where it drops from and the chances for that drop. So another thing to note here is, so say this, here's where it drops from Lightless Arbor Dungeon. We really want this helmet. Well, what else drops from Lightless Arbor? We can click on that. We can go over to boss items and we can see everything that that boss will drop. So if you ever are looking for a specific unique, you can always just check where it comes from. If it is a world drop, just farm world drops, but more importantly, you can target farm. Say we need a unique bow. We can see here, these are all the bows that'll drop from this specific echo in Fall of the Outcasts. Every single, all of the alternate timelines here have their own unique set or unique node. And this is how we target farm in this game. It is not the best. It has some flaws, namely if you are looking for something that's a rare drop, good luck. I spent 40 hours farming one helmet because I just have terrible luck. I highly recommend using Last Epoch tools over Max Roll. It has also been around a lot longer. I believe Max Roll started supporting Last Epoch in March of 2023, and you know, Last Epoch tools has been around for years, so they have a much larger head start. And although I do love Max Roll and I like the team there, I've used a lot of their build guides for games like Lost Ark, Diablo 4, Poe. I think that for Last Epoch specifically, this is the better site. With that, though, we are going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching this. This is the first video on the channel. If you could just do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, all that usual stuff. I'm going to be posting more Last Epoch content. My next video for Last Epoch will be a top 5 builds or specs, really, for new players. That should be up in a day or so if you're watching this shortly after it came out. Otherwise, it's out now. Go watch it. It's great. I'm sure I did a great job, and I'm not just winging it. And I should probably figure out what I think the top 5 builds for new players are before I start filming that. With that, though, thank you so much for watching this video. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.